So I guess I'll just welcome everybody to the public hearing in a completely different format this year. So public hearing on the budget. So we're going to walk through some of the highlights of the budget, some budget strategy, some other information. This presentation is similar in some ways to what I've done in prior years, but I did add and change some of the content to kind of address anything that was new, hopefully to provide some more background. And of course, since it's in this format, how the public comment process will go. Is Bob ready to go, or I'll just jump in?
I'd say just jump in.
All right.
Get started.
All right, so I go to the next slide, which this is the public comment process. We have an email address set up, which we'll use as long as we need to, but the address is there. The subject line just include the budget. It's a public comment related to the budget. We had set this up for prior by a Board of Finance meeting. But any of the comments that are submitted will be summarized and will be discussed at the virtual Board of Finance meeting that we have on June 11th at 6:30. So I saw Bob pop up. I don't know if you want to jump in, Bob, before I get started on the rest of the presentation. No. All right.
He needs to unmute himself.
All right. So the next slide is just the budget process, which, as we all know, as we sit in front of our computers, go back. Yep. Right. This has been a different budget process. The first half of it up through March through April went semi-normal, or at least into March. In April and May, when we had initially finalized the budget, the first selectman, Bob, went back and requested from each department if there were any potential budget reductions, and it came up with about $104,000 that was approved at a subsequent meeting. We're at the public hearing portion, and then on Thursday, the budget will be adopted by the Board of Finance in accordance with the governor's executive. So we'll postpone the process as long as possible, but we're required to approve the budget with this process for this year. Everybody, please mute. Can you take care of that? So again, just a reminder, the capital budget versus the capital plan, both these were talked about at the last Board of Finance meeting. The capital budget is just the projects that are approved, are funded for the 2020-21 fiscal year. The capital plan is a longer term view document that's a 10-year detailed look and a 20-year total look at the projects, the capital replacement, the funding for projects that have been requested or town anticipates that will be needed or wanted. Again, this is based upon the capital submissions that are provided by the various departments that are solicited during the budget process. So all that information gets put onto this capital plan, and then that's a starting point to develop the capital budget. So next. All right, so this, again, I'm going to start at the end. The goal of the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, when the pandemic hit, was to adopt a budget that didn't have any tax rate increase, and we did accomplish that. And we'll talk about some of the ways and some of the things that challenges we had in getting there. But the current budget as proposed is a no tax increase. Again, and this was accomplished by a lot of collaboration, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Education of the school district going back and looking at their budget and trying to accomplish this no increase in the tax rate. Next slide, please. So I added some slides to try to give some perspective on some of the budget strategy that we've been using over the last several years. We'll continue to streamline town operations, increase efficiency of the service delivery while maintaining the quality of services where we can. We'll try to address the town's infrastructure and capital improvement replacement needs with the least impact on the tax rate as possible. Again, but we're always conscious of that as things are being approved. We continue to fund capital needs to the greatest extent by utilizing grants and any tax funding that fits within the plan. Next. We used operating budget savings to fund capital needs and reduce future funding needs, which we did in a large way a couple of years ago or last year with the funding of the public works trucks. So if there's opportunities to reduce, in that case, it was reducing the bonding, we would take advantage of those opportunities from the operating budget to reduce that and to reduce the bonding needs. So again, we are very conscious of looking at the use of bonds because we all know we have a lot of projects, community septic and Scoville and public works facility, and a lot of things that are on that capital plan that most likely bonding would be the way that we'd have to fund those. So if we can minimize the use of that until some of those projects are available and approved, again, that's part of the strategy. Next. So some of the challenges to accomplishing the objective of no mill increase, just for background perspective, the shift in the student enrollment at the ADM increased Haddam's percentage of the region's budget, what our assessment would be. This shift, just based upon the 2020 approved budget, was $1,147,000 if the budget was approved at the same amount as last year. Of course, we know that was at the beginning of the budget process, and we know we'll talk about where we ended. Some new expenditures this year for commitments that we made along the way. HES, the debt service payment due to the region is $150,000. The carrying cost on that building, the utilities, maintenance, those type of things is $70,000, which is a new line. Tree removal costs were it's not new, but it was an increase of $50,000, which is not even really enough based upon what's going on across the state. Every single town that I'm involved with is struggling with the tree removal costs and trying to stay on top of that, and especially from a safety perspective. Then we had hydrants maintenance costs, which are a result of the Tyler River water line. So this is an annual cost that's new to the budget of $33,000. Of course, our new favorite topic for about everything is COVID-19 pandemic impacts. Looking at some projected revenue decreases and current property taxes, prior top property tax collections, that's affecting both 2020 and will affect 2021. Delinquent interest collections, the town, in accordance with Executive Order 7S, approved the low interest plans. Basically, that reduces, as long as the taxes are paid, interest from the 18%, that's statutory rate, down to 3% if the taxes are paid by October 1. Looking at trending building permit and conveyance tax decreases based upon decreased activity and interest income. We're on a nice trajectory of increasing that as rates that went up, but then COVID-19 hit, the interest rates basically went to zero. So we won't expect to see we had the same amount that we have got even budgeted in the prior year. The next slide, from an expenditure side, we're seeing increased need in social services, and you'll see that that's an item that's funded in the 21 budget. Some new technology costs, such as the software and supplies, I guess so far have been minor. The town is aware that the state, both through the CARES Act and potentially FEMA, we could get potential reimbursement for that, but that has to be applied for, and we're not sure when that will be, but the state just opened up the website to apply for the CARES Act money literally this week. So we'll be monitoring that. And then our continued significant capital needs, and we'll talk about that in more detail on a future slide. So the other positive factor, there was a grand list increase by the 8.66 million. So it was an increase of about 275,000 in taxes. The regional school district budget was reduced and adopted at a net increase to the town of 260. Again, the Board of Ed used a different number because of the 127,000, 128,000 that we approved the budget for last year based upon the referendum. It failed, and when they came back with a lower budget, our budget was already approved. So that's where that difference is. If somebody's looking at the math when the Board of Ed says 388,000 or so, 260 is what's actually presenting in our budget. Next. Again, as I mentioned up front, first up in requested town departments for reductions after the initial budget was approved of 104,000. That the capital budget was reduced by 160,000 as compared to prior year in order to accomplish this. And the regional school district 17 budget, their final approved budget was reduced as compared to 2020 by 635,000. So those are items that, where we started and some of the things that happened along the way of how we were able to get and accomplish a budget with no mill increase for this year. Just some other notes, as in past years, certain grants are budgeted in the capital non-recurring fund, LoCIP, which is used to support the capital budget, which is required under state statutes. And town aid road, if it's received, those monies will be appropriated and spent for roads or road-related things in the capital and non-recurring fund. All right. And just some highlights. The expenditure budget has been posted on the website, so I just pulled out some of the more significant, over $10,000 changes. The finance department is up 14,000. That's due to that position, the finance director position being increased to full-time based upon the amount of grants and other things that we have. It's just requiring more hours to kind of get everything done. The tax collector budget was decreased by 17,466, and this was due to the elimination of the assistant tax collector position. It was a vacant position at budget time, and so that it was eliminated in the 2021 budget. Benefits insurance are up due to increased costs for health insurance and for pension contributions. Contingency fund is up due to salary contingency related to union negotiations. Fire protection, and mostly for Haddam is down to $17,000 due to decrease in estimated property and vehicle maintenance for Haddam. Police department, state police budget is down 63,000, and that's due to a new trooper being assigned to the town at a lower salary and benefit rate. Public Works was down to decreases in minor equipment repairs, sign replacements, and outside contractors. Social and senior services was up to $27,000. Again, as that is due to increased hours and salary increases for that department. As I mentioned, the town is seeing an increased need for those services, and so they were funded this year in the budget. And youth and family services was up to 11,300, and that's again due to the increase in the assessment to the town as we both we fund that cooperatively with Killingworth. Next, all right, HK Recreation Authority, the budget was up 20,000. That was the increase is due to the decrease prior year. It was kind of returned more to the level that we had funded in previous years. Culture and recreation was up approximately 26,000. And that's mostly due to the increase in the funding for the library. They had been flat for several years, and so that increases to get them kind of back to the level of funding as a percentage in the past. The capital improvement budget, as I mentioned, is down 160,000. The tax funded portion of that is down 160,000. And again, that was to avoid increasing the mill rate. So we managed that number to offset some of the other increases to be able to accomplish that. Debt service is up 61,000, and the main reason for that was the increase due to the HES payment of 150,000. The Region 17 budget is up. The Haddam assessment is up to 260,701, as I previously mentioned, as compared to the amount that was approved in the 2020 budget. Some of the revenue highlights, again, we're expecting some decreases in supplemental tax, new car purchases, general property tax prior year. Those tax collections are down this year. We expect that to carry over. LOA tax credit program, reduce that amount. The interest and lien fees, again, we expect to be down both from the decrease in actual taxes paid plus the implementation of that low interest program. We expect people to take advantage of that, and so that will decrease since the interest rate is at 3% versus 18%. Again, these more impacts are related to anticipating some of the impact of COVID-19. Again, these are not very large numbers, but we definitely do anticipate an impact. So we'll probably not really know the full extent of the impact due to until January, based upon the timing of tax payments of those that have been escrowed versus what happens in January for taxes that haven't been escrowed. Building use, again, same thing, just looking at building permit fees. Right now they're trending lower. So this is just adjusting to expect that to continue. And the interest income we talked about due to the decreased interest rates that occurred after COVID-19 and the stock market went a little crazy. Next slide, capital budget. Again, as I mentioned, the budget presents 2020-21 approved projects and related funding sources. The capital plan includes the known and requested projects and estimated costs, including roads. Not all of the items presented in the plan are based upon formal estimates. So sometimes there's amounts there that, those would have to be vetted a little bit more if the project is to go forward. So this slide presents the 2020-21 capital budget that was approved by the Board of Finance last week. So that this information should be out on the website as well as here. So funded some of the message trailer and generator, the revaluation we've been funding over several years. And then it does include some things to look forward that hopefully that we can get done in the near future, the community septic design at Fore Road Crossing, and then some fire department items to continue to fund some of these rescue vehicle and engine replacements. Again, these two at 250 for the Haddam Volunteer Department, and that'll get us basically half funded for those two trucks. There's still another $500,000 to go for each of those trucks. They're estimated about $1 million. Again, we're trying to manage them to pay for these things using cash and not having to bond, because the trucks, as we've discussed in previous meetings, kind of got stacked up instead of being spaced out because we postponed doing them. So this is an effort to kind of fund that and again leave us with some bonding capacity for some of these other projects that the town would want to do. And then some public works equipment that would just reduce some of the costs. We wouldn't need to rent some of this equipment if we had the equipment to take care of some of these things. So the funding for this, the 425 is the amount that we looked at in the budget. That's funded with tax dollars. We're looking to transfer $575,000 from the current budget that wasn't used due to the bonds being issued. We just issued bonds for the roads and the other projects in June of this year. So that budget would be available, and then to use some of the unallocated money in the capital non-recurring fund to fund the projects that we just went over on the previous page. All right, next. So again, I presented something similar to this last year, just to look at our future capital plan challenges. So if we look at the years requested, and this is just again based upon the years that items were requested, the requests are $2 million for next year, $1.9 million the year after, 910, and then 1.2, and then 894 is getting a little bit more in the reasonable range. Again, looking at what's driving that, it's the fire replacement of some of these fire vehicles that we postponed, some of the firehouse maintenance, such as siding, that type of thing that needs to be done, and then some additional public works vehicles, again, over the next 5 years that are on the list to be replaced, and then the balance is the 1.5 million of a lot of other projects, again, that are listed if you listed in the detailed capital plan. So those are the highlights. Again, I'd just like to thank all the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance members, Finance Department, the town departments, and the Board of the Regional School District. This definitely was a challenging budget year. Unfortunately, I'd like to say that I think that challenge is behind us. I think the 22 budget will be more difficult because there are several unknowns as far as how this COVID-19 impacts tax collections and other items. But this was definitely a very team collaborative effort, and we couldn't have accomplished getting to a no mill increase without everyone working together. And then finally, again, just as a reminder, and we'll have this slide deck posted so you have these. It was on the agenda, but the public comments are being accepted at the email address that's listed, and then these comments will be summarized and we will discuss them on our meeting on Thursday, where we'll set the mill rate, we'll approve the final budget and set the mill rate. So those are the highlights. I'm not sure if Bob wants to jump.
Let me try this. If I can be heard now, hopefully.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. As you can see, I'm on my phone. It's just a continuation of my day. Pretty much everything I've touched today has broken. This computer not being an exception to it, apparently. It's indicating I was on and live and unmuted, and it lied. Anyway, since Joe went over most of everything I was going to say and then more in much more detail, I'd just like to wrap up by adding my thanks to all the people involved in this year's budget preparation. I've been involved in them for a number of years, both on the Board of Finance and with the fire department. And without a doubt, this has been so far the most challenging. And thanks to COVID-19, challenges probably do remain. Particularly want to thank the Board of Education, the regional school district staff, and Superintendent Haddam for their efforts. I mean, it makes a huge difference in our budget this year, the reductions they were able to implement. So my hearty thanks to them. Finally, I would encourage everyone to please make comment on the budget. This is obviously not our normal procedure. We'd be able to get these comments live tonight, but doing it online has proved to be cumbersome. So please email them in. As Joe has indicated, they'll be considered. The Board of Finance convenes on Thursday of this week to go over the comments, finalize the budget, and set the mill rate. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. And Joe, unless you have something to add.
Nope, I think that covers the public hearing and the presentation, and we'll do it again on Thursday.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is done. The public hearing is now over.
All right, thanks,
This
Joe.
conference is no longer being recorded.